Collectibles of Part 1. Let's discover how we made this project possible at Artman and DigixArt Studios. Hi, I'm Yohan Faniz, the creative director of 1111 Memories Retold.
I'm Bram Tweem and I'm the art director for 1111. So it's my job to design, tickle and tease the visuals until they convey the story and moods that we want.
This game tries to say that nothing is black or white, and even more during war times.
What if we could took all those emotions that were left behind and do a game about them?
So at the beginning of Memories Retold development, it was really a linear story. But at some point we said, what if we let the player choose what character you want to play, when you want to play?
It's been special to lend a voice to a narrative that feels very refreshing and different within the context of the World War I experience in games.
The good thing with this game is that the player can decide, you are the master of the game. So I'm not very familiar with these video games, but I was deeply impressed how exciting that is.
Both characters will change during the story, and I want the players to feel that they've travelled with them.
Puzzles are there to be like, if this person was in World War I, what would they be doing at this point? You connect with what the characters do in the story.
I think the art style will help convey the emotional journey by the fact that we can use things subjectively. We can use our paint strokes, angles and colour palettes and our lighting to convey more convincingly and emotively the themes.
We control the painterly effect with a set of textures that will control brush size, brush type, brush direction, and that's like a second texture which just the painterly effect sees, and it'll read out all that information and start applying brush strokes on top of it.
It is very tricky to get an engine to perform what we're trying to do because there's a lot of performance overheads, and there's also just the fact that what we're trying to do is pretty uniquely human. So when a human's doing a painting, they make thousands and thousands of decisions about what marks to make, what colours to use, and that's the challenge we took on. How do we actually teach a game engine to paint?
If just one person in the world kind of played it and got to the end of it and felt deep emotion, felt connection to that moment in history and walked away like being thankful and thoughtful and considerate and overwhelmed by actually quite what had happened in history, then we'd have done a great thing.
Congratulations to have found all collectibles of Part 2. Here is how we created the story and the music of the game.
Right now, music for video games is really the most innovative music going on at the moment. Normally I start off with a Skype conversation with Olivier, and he's got some very definite ideas of how to approach it.
Well, I think I've been very lucky to work on this game. I worked very closely with the writers. We've been discussing on a daily basis the characters. The music now is much more about telling the story.
The subtlety we want to convey in the game go through the music first. The war has to be personified in a way, and the music plays that role.
The orchestra is there to express a lot of colors. With Impressionism, I had a lot of, harmonics that are like all spread around. It's quite simple, you might say, but all of a sudden it takes like a lot of dimensions.
For us, it was story first, and it was, as long as we make a strong character-driven story and use the war as a backdrop rather than make it about the war, that was our focus.
The core aspects were in place, the two characters, the animals, but there was a lot of story and a lot of things that DigixArt wanted to get into the game.
It's difficult to find a way to express all ideas into a single experience. The coordination between the creative teams all around the world was a massive challenge, and the deadline of the game could not be changed.
You'll notice that there are no villains in this game. Each of the characters that you think may be a villain will hopefully have a redeeming arc somewhere.
When you're dealing with a subject matter like war, to talk about things in terms of good and bad and right and wrong, it just feels so absolutely wrong. We just wanted to write everybody is very, very human, and everything is just shades of morally grey. It's up to the player to kind of decide what they think is best in any given situation.
There's real opportunity for there to be an emotional response. This inherently has that built into the fabric of the storytelling by the very nature of the fact that it takes place during such an intense time in our history, and they've chosen to zero in on one side and the other side, but humanizing those two sides so that we can relate to both of them and their own experiences without it being this or that, or this is the enemy, this is not the enemy. And I think that will be really powerful.
Congratulations to have found all collectibles of Part 3. This video is looking at the historical aspect of the game.
My name's Professor Peter Doyle. I'm a visiting professor in history at University in London. Well, the level of historical accuracy is always something, of course, that we have to consider. The game has to be a game, but what we've tried to do is to approach it with as accurate a process as possible. So the game starts at the end of 1916. The war has already seen massive battles which saw and expended huge numbers of men, and that's the focus of this game, the whole of this period after the end of these titanic battles and towards the end of the war.
1111 is a game, of course, and we knew there would be some give and take before we found the balance of historical accuracy and gameplay.
Kurt is older. Their relationship is, you know, tenuous initially. They can't communicate at all. I love that about the game as well. The German character is speaking in German, and Harry is trying to communicate with him in English, and you know, initially it's kind of faulty.
Harry and Kurt, both of them are going to the front for very, very different reasons. But they have something in common. How they feel about taking the life of someone else. This is something for them that they cannot imagine.
So myself and my colleague Robin Schaefer, a German military historian, we wrote this book called Fritz and Tommy. And the idea behind that was to look at the First World War experiences of the Germans and the British, and to see their everyday lives. And one thing that we identified was just how close those guys were. What we've gleaned from all of the letters and diaries is there comes a point where there is a lull in the fighting, and there's a reason for that. The men of both sides decide, right, let's put the fighting aside, let's go into no man's land, let's do what we can for our dead, and let's respect those on each other. And so there were these impromptu communications. Again, it goes back to the real feature that men are men wherever they are, and peace is mostly in their hearts.
At our tiny level, if we can make people think about war in a different way, and maybe if it could bring a tiny piece of peace in the world, it would be nice. We would have done a great job.